All right, all right, all right. So welcome everyone. This is the AI Advantage Momentum webinar series. I am Jonathan Carford, aka Coach K. Really excited. I'll be hosting this event with us all today. I have the CEO of Momentum with me, Santi, was with us. Awesome, welcome. And we also have the CBO of Seismic, Toby Carrington, is our esteemed guest of today. And I'll be kind of hosting us as we go through. And you should be able to chat live. So if you have questions as you go, you should be able to have comments on the side and leave us comments so we can see what's going on and answer any questions as we go. But our plan is to go from now for another 30 minutes and kind of dive in and get all of the details from Toby on his brain. So before we get into that, really quick about the AI Advantage series. Want to make sure you know what the whole purpose of this is. We'll be doing this monthly with Momentum, and it's designed to showcase how leaders, like last month was Kyle. Obviously, we're with Toby today. We're trying to find out how leaders are leveraging AI to solve real business problems, challenges, make real impact. And really excited about today's topic with Toby. And I want to make sure we kind of introduce real quick the next guest, which is Mark with Demand Base, is going to be next month. We'll be sending out a notice with that. He'll be going into specifically methodology adoption with AI, which will be a fun topic. And they're using Winning by Design, which we are officially partners with. So it'll be a fun conversation and kind of dive into that. Really quick, if you don't know about Momentum, I want to make sure this is very clear, is that this is an AI data pipeline. They have a term called enterprise listening. I'm going to be quiet in a second, let Santi talk because he knows this much better than I do. But as an ex-customer of Momentum, I can tell you that I loved being able to have this source of power that took all the data from whatever source and throwing it into Salesforce or to Snowflake or to Slack. That gave me all the insight I needed to have from a RevOps enablement perspective, which was awesome. So I'm not going to do as good a job as the CEO will. So Santi, I'm going to let you chime in, and then we'll introduce Toby.
Thank you, Coach. Okay, so the way we're thinking about AI and go-to-market is in the sphere of revenue intelligence. Gong, Chorus, call recordings. What we see is a lot of value in the data, but we're thinking about it differently. It's not about storing all that video, but analyzing the words of every interaction. And it's not just calls, really. It's emails, it's support tickets, it's intercom chats through the website. It all makes up a pool of knowledge that can be really impactful for companies. So the way we tackle it is we plug into all those vendors, to Gong, to Chorus, to Gmail. We receive every interaction and we apply prompts. You control your prompts and you control the analysis. And then the extractions that come out, which are usually structured data, go into Salesforce fields, Salesforce notes, Snowflake, Slack notifications. That's kind of how we do it.
Nice. Love it. Well, if you don't mind, let's introduce our lovely esteemed guest, Toby, today. You give me all the deets.
Coach, thank you. Thank you for having me. Toby Carrington. I run operations and strategy at Seismic as the Chief Business Officer. For those who haven't heard of Seismic, we're the market leading enablement company, and I'm excited to talk to you all. I've been involved with Momentum for a few months as an advisor, and really excited about the space and where everything is going, and especially excited to be here today, Coach, to talk to you about this sort of topic. We've been through what I'm sure many will describe as not an easy year, easy year enterprise software, B2B software sales. Sort of here to do a little bit of a recap and talk a little bit about what others should be thinking about as they're in their planning season and things like that for next year, because I'm sure, like many, I'm very, very heavily involved in our strategy planning as we look into next year, and AI has to be a very key part of that as we look forward.
Totally. Well, I'm really excited for this topic in general. I want to kind of kick it off if we can, and the whole topic we're talking about, from going from efficiency to growth. I'd love to have you recap from your point of view of 24. Where do you feel like we've been and where are we kind of transitioning? We'll kind of jump into the details as we go. I want to get some context from you of your view of what's happened and where we're going.
I think most of the people in a SaaS context know that we expected 2024 to be a bounce back year. If you go back a little while, 18 months or so, people were going through tough times, right-sizing organizations, and the idea was set the foundation for a return to growth this year. I don't think that's materialized anywhere near as universally as people thought. There's an election here in the US. There's a lot of uncertainty that continued for a period of time, and so it was a tough year, right? And I think that the focus very much was bottom line. And if you think about some of the trends on AI and so forth, that was also continued investment into AI, but perhaps for purposes of bottom line improvement. The people that I talk to, and whether that's other people at similar companies like ourselves, external investors and things like that, even analysts are saying that certainly the green shoots of growth are starting to come back. And so I think the very interesting shift now is people talking a lot about AI powering the top line, pushing that revenue growth. So I think that's certainly a trend that we've seen throughout the year.
I love that. And Santi, I'd love to get from your point of view, just because I know you've been doing momentum for a few years now, and you've been in the space for a while as well with other tech. Like, what do you see from this last year, and how are you transitioning? What's the next year looking like as you're talking to people?
Yeah, and Toby and I have kind of discussed these topics over drinks in person a couple of times. So there's a fair bit of alignment here. I built my opinion on Toby's and a couple of others. And I was there in the trenches in 2022, 2023. I was there in 2021. It was a lot more fun to be there then. And I do agree with Toby. There's almost like two main trends going on as we transition from 2024 to 2025. I think there's a big macro change in the market, and we're solidifying, hopefully, a bounce back. I think the window for IPOs and M&As will open, and when it opens, it'll open. It'll be a slam open. Growth will be the new pursuit. You just can't cut your way into 100% year-over-year growth or IPO material. So that's definitely aligned. And the second one will be, how do we consider Gen AI as part of our strategy? I think we come from a year in which, for the most part, buyers have been toying with AI, seeing cool demos, skeptical for the most part. It is not the first time we all get excited by artificial intelligence, or what we called it before was machine learning. And it's under-delivered up until this last run around. So I think 2024 was the year in which we all tested it out and saw what it could perhaps do. And I think in 2025 will be the year of fully allocated budgets for exploration and testing. I don't think we're gone massive yet, but people will start coming around and saying, hey, I have $100K that I need to allocate to this, or I have $50K or $1 million, depending on the size of the company, to just explore it.
Go ahead, Toby.
Santi, it's going to maybe go faster than that. I think that for many companies, the experimentation was 2024, and that the experimentation has to very quickly get into, as you said, a core part of the strategy. I'm not want to sort of overshare about our strategy, but actually we had a workshop just today on strategic initiatives for next year, and one of them is AI in everything that we do, both in our product, but also in the way that we work, and moving beyond what I would call sort of centralized experimentation that we've done with co-pilots and assistive AI to very consequent work around which part of the processes and so forth can be done with agentic AI, which parts of people's work will be done with assistive AI in the more traditional sort of co-pilot sense. And that went so fast, right? I mean, Salesforce kind of invented Agent Force and this agentic AI concept a few months ago. Now everybody's talking about agentic AI, and I think we're getting to a crescendo of where you have to be able to have this as part of your strategy, rather than something that you just think can be taken care of by the IT department or the business systems department or the RevOps department. I think we've reached that tipping point, and if we haven't, or if people haven't, I think they might get left quite a way behind if they're still in the exploration stage in the latter part of next year. That's for sure.
Well, Toby, that's kind of a good transition to the next topic. We were talking before this about just co-pilots in general, and this kind of goes to like how does someone, both from your seat, you said it's going faster than you think. How do you from a strategic level think about how, when, and why to use automation and AI or agents and AI? How do you go about thinking that, and where do you prioritize? Where do you start?
So a friend of mine, Hayes Davis, actually, I was reading an article that he wrote today, and I will quote a couple of things from him with permission. He showed some research which basically showed that mainstream use cases of generative AI the biggest mainstream use case in large companies is for assistance with coding, right? So technical work, writing lines of code, like with those types of co-pilots. And then because we've been talking about assistive AI, that it's for use cases like support, ticketing, and things like that, right? And I think people have found a home for assistive generative AI co-pilots for when you need, real-time information, provided to a person that's trying to resolve things. But then it's going quickly to replacing that completely with agents. And so I think people have got to have a look at which parts of the process can be completely can be completely replaced, and which things still require creativity or personalization or a human interpreting those things. And I think that we can't be distracted by sort of shiny objects and things like that. Now, I'm not for a second saying that I disagree with the idea of, for example, AI powered sales development reps, business development reps, but there's almost 400 companies that have appeared this year that are making AI-powered SDRs. Now, so you've got to think about what the right use case is for that in any process or in a sales process. So there's the information gathering piece. There's the piece of sort of bit of discovery, qualification, things like that I think makes a lot of sense. But when you're buying something in a software sense, there's also the point in time which you need to build confidence and a relationship with a company, trust with a person, trust with an organization. And so there's a transition maybe from an agent type AI to an assistive type AI. And so I think those are the types of things that people need to start thinking about, Coach. Like there's some pretty obvious, let's say, use cases like these coding co-pilots, like support agents and so forth that are there. And then there's more nuanced use cases that are going to require a lot more thought as you look at your processes.
So I'm going with that thought. And again, if whoever's listening, you guys have questions, please put them in the comments. We make sure you answer them as we go. But going with that thought, Toby, I'm curious of like, how important do you feel like data is inside of this whole new world? Because like, as an example, Seismic, the data source is all the content you guys hold for a sales team for a CMS, right? And all the other things you guys hold. So you have a set of data that's unique and can be powered by an AI, technology. So when it comes to any type of process improvements or any of that kind of stuff, how important is that data structure? And what do you suggest to people to get that type of data, or how to think about that data?
I think it's very, very important, right? I mean, there's the old adage of, garbage in, garbage out. And I think in this case, it's garbage in could lead to a lot of hallucination and strange things coming out that you don't want, especially if you're thinking about an agent, an AI agent doing things completely for you. I asked generative AI, I asked ChatGPT actually earlier, tell me a joke about generative AI, and it said, generative AI is like the coworker that's really hardworking, creative, and has lots of great ideas, but sometimes those ideas are about cats wearing bowler hats swimming to the moon. And the sort of the amusing part of that is that's what can happen, of course, if you don't have the right data that you're training it on. Now, I think something that people have realized is that as they start, people in this experimentation phase, people were experimenting on doing their own things over LLMs, maybe working with little pieces of things here and there, but making sure that you're working actually with vendors, and you use the example of Seismic, that are able to contextualize the data and understand the workflow behind the data and what the data means and what it's supposed to do is really really important. I mean, as it relates to something like us, it's not just the quality of data that you put in, it's also the quality of data you get out. And by that I mean, if you're working in regulated industries or anything like that, you've got to be extremely careful that the set of data that things are working with. So I'm sure Santi has some perspective on that, but that's I think it's absolutely critical to make sure you have the data, but also the context behind the data.
Yeah,
context is sorry.
Sonny, I was going to say, I want to chime in this question with you. I'm going to add a little bit of flavor, which if you can add your thoughts, and then also if you could add I'd love to hear your thoughts on what customers of yours have been able to do as a result of getting data, because that's what Momentum does, is create that data for them in the first place, right? So,
yeah. So I think context is the magic word here, and I feel like with the concept of context windows, we've all become familiar with. This ChatGPT has 500,000 token context window, or Gemini has 2 million. We kind of overlooked the fact that context is such an essential piece of quality outputs. The context itself, not the window. The window is fine, but if you fill the context window up with 2 million tokens of crap, you're not going to have an agent that will yield great results. So as we push Gen AI further and further into the assistance curve, and they go from doing the 5% of the job that is kind of low risk and easy to get done, and we push them to do 30%, 50%, 75% of the job, and we give them responsibilities that have bigger implications, like send the email to the customer directly, or decide what deal we're going to work and what deal we're not going to work. The context you provide to that agent is the most fundamental piece of the quality of the decisions it's going to make.
Right.
And of course, if you're doing it at scale, you're going to need to dynamically pick what context you provide to every single item the agent works on. And that's where things get complicated. And that's why this kind of technology will take a little longer to build than a simple, SDR that just blasts the world with 40,000 emails and has no repercussions.
That's right. And I think, Coach, the question is about the safe use of generative AI, and by that I mean safely putting in data to certain things, and safely trusting it to perform certain tasks on your behalf, right? And if you think about the consequences for things like one of the use cases as well that obviously we're heavily interested in is things like coaching, preparation, coaching, training, these type of use cases. An internal role play where maybe, let's say an internal role play with a video avatar where it's 95% right, and it's not, there's no real harm or foul caused if if some of the data is not quite right, it can be corrected and so forth. But again, using that example before about an AI SDR, you quote the wrong price, or something like that goes wrong, there become quite high implications. And so I think that it's really important to understand, as people think about the use of AI, they should think about the safe use, and by that I mean the appropriate way to manage risk, and certainly having cleaner data, more context around the data, and knowing what the use cases Gen AI is going to do with that data is the work that has to be done.
Yeah, I think one thing I love about Momentum is that Momentum has a zero retention policy with OpenAI, which means that it's extremely safe and no data is being used for training the model, which is not a common thing, which is cool. I know, Santi, you want to tap into that a little bit more too, because that kind of goes into security, and then I'll use that to transition back to you, Toby, on a question.
Yeah, for sure. So it is essential, given that we handle interactions with prospects and active customers for public companies, it is essential that we're not retraining models or letting any sort of pathway to that data trickling into the context that a pre-trained model carries with it. Luckily, OpenAI has by now matured quite a bit its stance and its toolkit to provide that. At this point, not even logging is being done in the data set. It's just running memory before response comes back, and then we move on. Security is going to be essential, and trust. is another fundamental piece. There's a ton of
Yeah.
early stage startups, and I don't pretend to portray Momentum as a mature, 25-year company, but there are going to be a lot of early stage startups that are going to be showing a lot of cool demos, and the buyers need to be informed on deciding, okay, which ones of those am I going to trust? In the end, LLMs and Gen AI have only been around for a couple of years, so any technology and any solution out there won't be something that is decades mature. So you're going to have to make bets, and for that, I think you need to just look at customers, look at trajectory, meet the team, understand how they think about the technicalities of what they do, because you could get burnt otherwise.
Totally. Well, Toby, kind of going to this and back to the topic, which I love, is this whole concept of growth. So like when you are leading Seismic into this next year, when you're talking about growth, I'm assuming you mean revenue growth, not just cost reduction or time efficiencies or that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
yeah.
what is the things you suggest to your team or to others when you say growth? Like how is AI involved with that besides just the efficiency play?
Yeah, absolutely. And I might answer that also. I saw there was a question in chat about who owns AI strategy, in an organization. I think we've seen CIOs come back into huge power. That's something that happened in 2024, which will continue. But I believe that this will be a C-level topic where you're going to have people. If you think about AI and everything that you do, you're going to have a CRO thinking about what that means for their organization, chief marketing officers and so forth, really digging in and doing that, supported by a strong systems org. So as you think then about sort of the marketing functions or the sales functions and so forth, Coach, to your question, I think people are faced with the same topic that they had with, like, let's call it, RPA or traditional automation. It's what do you do with the time savings? Because, I always say this, like, you can automate things and you can make steps in the process easier, but does that mean you just have an earlier tea time, or you go down the pub earlier, have a few drinks, or what do you do with that time? And so that's where it's a combination for me of thinking about those things that are, what are the things that are actually pipeline generation, right? How do you increase the number of at-bats that people are getting? And that's, of course, where a lot of these companies are going with the combination of data like intent signals and all of these sort of things feeding into things to help organize people's days. Then there's of course, the topic of efficiency and customer success type roles and so forth, to be able to allow the human to focus on more higher value activities while the machine is taking away other tasks and so forth. But I think you're going to have to think about metrics that you want to measure, and I think that like, for example, the classic use case where we've seen sort of agents really come in, the support, customer support use case, people are measuring faster issue resolution and higher customer satisfaction when they're using AI. And I think that for growth metrics, then we're going to have to look at the same things, focusing on the key use cases that maybe lead to higher win rates, higher deal sizes, faster deal velocity, and so forth. And I think a lot of that is about knowing everything that's happened in a sales process, having that information at your fingertips, being able to be guided to the next steps in the process, and so forth. And if that is early steps being done, but again, I have nothing against AI SDR companies whatsoever. I'm just saying that if certain steps are done completely up front, it has to be at a better quality, right? Otherwise, you're not going to grow. You're not going to have a faster. If it's just pipeline that's qualified by a machine instead of a person, and it's the same quality, then all you did was save money, right? That didn't really help you to grow. But if it is more information, if you qualified out deals that weren't as useful beforehand, wrong ICP, whatever it may be, then you're going to absolutely see top line growth as a result of those things. So I think, you've really got to challenge and figure out, is this just a time saving thing, or is this something that actually makes the quality better of the interaction? So
Love
Oh, I
that.
love. Yeah, I do too. So I know you have something to add to that. You got to tell me more. What do you think?
I do. I've been thinking about this. We have customers and we support teams both on the customer support side of the aisle and the SDR side of the aisle and account executives. And this idea of growth rather than efficiency. I think I'm building an opinion as this develops, but I think efficiency kind of breaks as you enter the account executive realm. I think efficiency works really well on time constrained, high throughput roles like ticketing handling of tickets or SDRs, prospecting and personalization of emails. Now, when you enter the world of AEs are not necessarily time constrained, and I don't sell to my customers that giving back a rep, 3 hours a week allows them to work an extra, 5% of pipeline. It rarely does. I think the real ROI when it comes to growth through AI to account executive is a little more nuanced. As you say, Toby, it's about prioritizing deals, identifying the deals that deserve more attention or the deals that deserve no attention. It also is about preventing churn or preventing loss of deals by detecting patterns in communication. And as you go up the chain of command, being able to analyze batches of data in bulk, and be able to look at the month, look at the quarter, and provide the CRO with insights that they wouldn't have otherwise, and have them make a decision that changes, I don't know, the pricing or packaging of the company for the better, or changes the way we're positioning for the better. Those are a little more nuanced points of return. They're harder to measure. They require a little bit more trust right now before we prove it at scale. But I think the results are orders of magnitude larger than allowing an SDR to generate 5% more meetings, or allowing a CS team to handle an extra 3 tickets per week.
Right.
So the benefits are worth the effort.
So Toby, and I know there's a question from Merrick, but I'm just quick. I don't know if you can answer 2 thoughts in one to end this up. But my thought is, like, from your seat as a CBO, moving, a decent sized company who has a lot of movement behind them and real respected in the market. How valuable is data to you to make those decisions? I mean, you think about the consequence of having data at your fingertips that you would have had to wait weeks before to get. Now you have it anytime. It has to make a difference in how you think or strategize. So your thoughts on that, and then Eric.
It absolutely does, and I'll actually try and answer Eric's question as well as that, Coach. Yeah. One of the challenges is, we have always had very rich data around enablement. You think about traditional things like what content's being used at which stage of a sales cycle, and what are people using and not doing, and how are prospects engaging with content, and who's taking training, and all these type of things. But actually, bringing that all together to prove the value, for example, of enablement, or for marketing to prove the value of the programs, to really know how are things going, like product launches, or how are new campaigns going, or how are the particular plays that you're running out of enablement, how are they going? The combination of the advances in platforms like ourselves are making with AI powered insights, as well as that sort of efficiency gain, is going to lead to the ability for enablement to become a much more senior function. And so I think that's really the big thing for us, Coach, is if you think about where we're going with things like, for example, you'll feed in some product marketing content and you'll get a great first draft of a lesson. So you don't have enablement people sitting there for days or hours preparing training courses and so forth. They're actually spending much more time on the value of those activities, tweaking those programs, and making sure that that's resonating, with the field, and that's backed by data. So I think, the data insights piece of Gen AI is going to take a little longer than we think, because, bringing together that data and knowing what data to look at in what context and when is really critical. Just having an ability to, in natural language, ask sort of question about data, you need to know what question to ask, and you need to know what context to ask it in, and you need to know what you're trying to prove. So, the foundation is clean data, but I think that it's going to take some time for people to really understand the context. But I think for us, it's a really exciting time in enablement, because the technology is giving enablers really the ability to show their contribution to go-to-market transformations. And I think right now every CRO, every CEO is thinking about efficient growth, doing more with less. But the thing is, in 2024, it was more about doing, the same more profitably. Next year, it's doing more profitably. It's top line growth and bottom line growth, and that's the exciting frontier.
As an enabler for 10 years, it's music to my ears. I love hearing that. Santi, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I love it.
I love it.
Very exciting time, 2025.
Yeah, it's fun, man. Well, Toby, just want to say thank you so much, and Santi, for the Momentum hosting these series. It's been a blast. I like to keep on time. We're a minute over, but just want to say thank you. I'll be sending this out to the team. Make sure they have all the recordings and emails and information, and Toby will make sure I have your contact information as well. But just want to say thank you all for listening, and thank you, Toby, for joining us.
Thank you, Coach. Thanks, Santi.
Thank you, Toby. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Coach.
No problem.